The house is what real estate agents call a teardown, but the land around it's beautiful.
And there's a bunch of vernal pools in there.
Rebecca Ritter shows us around the 6.5 acres her mom bought 29 years ago for just under 90 grand. 73-year-old Penny Napoli wanted us to talk just with her daughter.
She's better at this, and the county's been beating us pretty bad, and I just don't want to mix things up.
What Napoli's talking about is the county seizing her property under the power of eminent domain to expand the airport runways. The county is offering her $135,000 for the 6.5 acres, but tax records show the property is assessed at $406,000.
It's been an emotional roller coaster. It's our government should be protecting us, and they're not. They're just trying to take our property, steal it, essentially.
The family's attorney says the Constitution guarantees the right to let a jury decide the land's value, but in eminent domain cases, tax records are inadmissible, cannot be shown to the jury.
They probably will never hear what, in my opinion, is the biggest injustice in the case so far.
The county's attorney's office said the airport manager would be speaking for the county. And while the manager could tell us about the expansion, he was barred from talking about the case.
So we can't talk about price?
No.
Can't talk about what the property's appraised for?
No.
What he finally did say is that Penny Napoli was given two offers, one for her land and one for moving expenses. The family's attorney says the expense allowance was $279,000. But he added, the issue here is the value of the land. A real estate agent who specializes in Santa Rosa acreage told us $350,000 to $400,000 would be the low end just for the dirt. How about $135,000?
I don't believe so. I don't think you can get anything for that.
Napoli is afraid.
This is the last part of my life, and instead of getting ready and just enjoying life, for the last 2 years, I think every minute of the day, every hour, that's in my mind.
Trial date is tentatively set for August 6th. In Santa Rosa, Mark Matthews, ABC 7 News. At 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon, the Artemis 72-foot America's Cup boat known as Big Red was turning downwind in what is termed a bear-away maneuver when the boat suffered a catastrophic failure.
Andrew was a very good friend.
A very emotional race director struggled to get the words out today as he described Andrew Bart Simpson, a gold medal Olympic sailor who had just joined the Artemis team in February.
Andrew was used to doing everything in life at the fullest and to the highest level he could.
Simpson was supposed to be carrying an emergency oxygen bottle, but we don't know if he had it or if he used it. The regatta chairman, Ian Murray, could not say exactly what had happened.
The boat nosedived, and all we know from that point in that manoeuvre is that the boat ended up upside down, capsized, broken into many pieces.
And out of respect for the team, the regatta chairman and the CEO of the event authority are waiting to question crew members who were on board. But the father of the man who was steering the boat says he spoke with his son last night. Tony Outeridge spoke with Australia's NBN television.
He's not very good. He's not very good. He said it's the worst day of his life. It's, a good mate, dead. He was skippering the boat. He said he didn't do anything different from normal, but he just feels responsible for it.
Outeridge says his son described what happened.
He heard a few cracking noises, and then the boat tipped on its side. Before it went right over, the main frame just broke and it collapsed a bit like a taco shell cracking.
The regatta director said today questions about that are going to have to wait at least until next week.
We need to give the respect to the team, the families, and we will start the details when the process with the Coast Guard, the police department, and access to the people and the equipment become available.
We know that the downwind turn that the Artemis team was attempting when the accident happened yesterday is the same maneuver that the Oracle team was trying when their boat capsized last fall. Oracle made adjustments. We expect that the Artemis team will do the same when their second boat arrives the first part of June. Reporting from the America's Cup compound at Pier 27, Mark Matthews, ABC 7 News. Mr. President, about Nevada, one quick question. Should the Clinton campaign take a stronger position against that lawsuit that wants to get away from the caucus sites on the Strip? The question came after the Clinton campaign told me yesterday it isn't taking a position on the lawsuit to ban casino caucus sites. even though it could mean that tens of thousands of workers along the Strip would be unable to caucus this Saturday.
You asked the question in an accusatory way, so I'll ask you back. Do you really believe that all the Democrats understood that they had agreed to give everybody that voted at the casino a vote worth 5 times as much as people who voted in their own precinct? Did you know that? Their votes will be counted 5 times more powerfully in terms of delegates to the state convention to pick the delegates to the national convention. What happened is nobody understood what had happened. They uncovered it, and now everybody's saying, oh, they don't want us to vote.
Well, what Bill Clinton is saying about the 5-to-1 vote advantage is possible, but not very likely. The rules say that the casino caucus voters will be tallied based on turnout. Now, if there is a very low turnout at the casino sites and a very big turnout in the rural areas of Nevada, then it's possible the casino voters would be more powerful vote for vote. But that same rule applies in lots of states. In parceling out delegates, parties routinely give more weight to voters in rural areas as a way to get the candidates out to campaign in those areas. In any case, the casino caucuses will nominate no more than 6% of the total number of delegates, no matter what the turnout, not 5 times more than anyone else. And the timing of the lawsuit, 2 days after the Culinary Union's endorsement of Barack Obama, does lead some to suspect that might have been the motive. But the timing of the lawsuit with the endorsement does look to some people like, now that they understand the endorsement, they want to change the rules.
Your position is it should be easier for them to vote than for anybody else who works in the afternoon. Your position is their vote should count 5 times as much. Is that right?
I'm just saying those are the rules that were agreed to in March.
Well, but I didn't
By
have
those same people that are bringing the lawsuit.
Well, none of them knew that the votes were rigged that way. They found that out later.
The wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas called Anita Hill's office at 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday, saying, "Good morning, Anita Hill. It's Ginny Thomas. I just wanted to reach across the airwaves and the years and ask you to consider something. I would love you to consider an apology sometime and some full explanation of why you did what you did with my husband. So give it some thought and certainly pray about this and come to understand why you did what you did. Okay? Have a good day." What Anita Hill did in 1991 was to testify at Clarence Thomas's confirmation hearing, telling senators that Thomas had sexually harassed her while she was working for him.
He spoke about acts that he had seen in pornographic films involving such matters as women having sex with animals and films showing group sex or rape scenes.
The testimony rocked the confirmation hearing, but Thomas was confirmed, and 16 years later, in 2007, Virginia Thomas told ABC News,
"I think she owes us an apology, and I look forward to receiving that phone call or that visit one day."
10 days ago, Thomas apparently decided to prompt Hill with the phone call. This morning, Hill sent me an email saying, "I filed a report about the voicemail message with Brandeis University Police. As I understand it, they will send forwarded to the FBI. At this point, I have nothing more to say about the matter." Virginia Thomas then confirmed the call in this email, admitting that she had placed the call to Miss Hill at her office, extending an olive branch to her after all these years in hopes that we could ultimately get past what happened so long ago. "Certainly no offense was ever intended," said Thomas. No mention of asking for an apology, and when Hill heard that explanation, she called me to say, "I have been clear for 19 years about what happened. I am not going to apologize for telling the truth."
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pete Wilson.
And I'm Jessica Aguirre. Lobbying in Washington is taking a new turn. A growing number of lobbying firms are setting up nonprofit front groups to push their corporate message. ABC 7's political reporter Mark Matthews found one example when he began investigating the source of information on a website called Fishcam. Fishcam.
Fish scam,
Fish.
actually. You know, for years we've heard about health risks associated with eating certain kinds of fish because of high mercury levels in those fish. The Chicago Tribune just recently did a big report on canned tuna with levels of mercury that they found that were so high the government had to reevaluate its standards. So I was particularly interested when I came across fishscam.com, which says mercury in fish warnings are exaggerated and unnecessary. Like to eat ahi, but you're worried about mercury? Click on Fish Scam, a website run by the Center for Consumer Freedom.
The best science indicates that the trace amounts of mercury in the fish we feed our children and our families is so small that it's not a danger to anybody.
David Martosco is Director of Research at the Center for Consumer Freedom, a nonprofit, tax-exempt educational organization.
So we like to call shenanigans on people when they're really off base. So we're sort of a watchdog group in that respect.
The center has found there's a lot to watch. You know those warnings about drinking and driving?
Government statistics and independent science confirms very clearly that the drunk driving problem in this country has been reduced to a small, hard core of repeat offenders.
In fact, government statistics don't show that. The truth is, 2/3 of those arrested are first-timers. And Mothers Against Drunk Driving reports that first-timers are an even bigger majority when it comes to accidents and deaths. Nevertheless, the Center for Consumer Freedom runs ad campaigns against lowering the legal blood alcohol limit. And you know those warnings that Americans are getting fat because of what we eat? The Center for Consumer Freedom says instead we should be promoting exercise.
That would do far more to combat childhood obesity than, say, suing McDonald's.
Oh, so close. Salad line.
The center's ads are eye-catching.
Nothing for you.
Come on.
Come back when you're thinner.
And the message is, food police are out to take the ice cream away from your children and the hot dog out of your hand.
Do you ever feel like you always been told what not to do?
The Center for Consumer Freedom's ads say activists are trying to scare us. One of those activists is San Francisco physician Jane Hightower.
I'm honored.
Dr. Hightower published a report linking the coronary artery disease she saw in her patients with large amounts of tuna and swordfish that her patients were eating.
I did not get paid to do this study. I did it because people were not feeling well and they all had elevated mercury levels.
The Environmental Protection Agency believes mercury is a big enough threat. It warns pregnant women, don't eat any swordfish. But Martosco says the EPA warnings are exaggerated and Hightower must have an agenda.
Dr. Hightower, I think, is 3 parts activist, 1 part scientist.
David Martosco attacks Dr. Hightower for being an activist. But Martosco himself is no part scientist. He was a music major in college and then an AM radio talk show producer before becoming chief researcher for the Center for Consumer Freedom, which is headquartered inside the lobbying offices of Richard Berman, a lobbyist for the restaurant and beverage industry. Berman set up the Center for Consumer Freedom and a number of other tax-exempt educational organizations, and those educational nonprofits all seem to support messages that dovetail nicely with the food and beverage and tobacco industries that have hired Rick Berman to be their lobbyist.
Welcome to Washington. This is the way things tend to be done here.
When we tried to ask Berman himself about that, he ducked out of our interview.
We'll give you a photograph. Say whatever you want to say.
Oh, don't do that to me. Berman wouldn't talk with us about how his nonprofits are connected financially to his lobbying business, and his research director didn't tell us either.
I don't know the firms that send the Center for Consumer Freedom money. I don't want to know. It's not my job to know. It's not my business to know.
We did find that 10 years ago, Rick Berman lived in this house in a D.C. suburb. After he opened his first nonprofit, he moved to this much more expensive home. And the most recent available tax records for the Center for Consumer Freedom show that in 2004, Berman and Company took in nearly $1.5 million from the Center for Consumer Freedom.
It's like getting a tax advantage for paying your lobbyist.
John Stauber is an environmental activist and founder of the Center for Media and Democracy, which tracks Berman's financing. He says nonprofit tax-exempt organizations don't have to reveal who gives them money. During one of our repeated requests for an interview, Rick Berman told me it wouldn't serve his food and beverage clients to be specifically identified with the often edgy campaigns of his nonprofit educational organizations.
Not public interest campaigns, but smear campaigns, attack campaigns that he brags about to muddy the image and reputation of legitimate public interest organizations and scientists.
Stauber says some groups have filed complaints against Berman and Company with the IRS. The IRS does not confirm or deny investigations. We found the former IRS director in charge of the tax-exempt division and asked him. He says the IRS takes a very broad view of what's educational.
Someone sets up a website claiming the moon is made out of green cheese, and they go through some elaborate proof of that. The IRS isn't going to say that's just too absurd. They'll let it. It's a form of free speech.
Mark Owen says Berman could get into trouble if he is found to be running a tax-exempt organization for private benefit. But the IRS admits it doesn't have a lot of people checking up on that. Berman told the Washington Post that he has been contacted by the IRS and that nothing came of it because he is doing nothing wrong. On Capitol Hill, Representative Pete Stark of Fremont is an activist on issues of health care and childhood obesity. He calls Berman's operation an abuse of the educational nonprofits that are supposed to act in the public interest.
I don't know what we do except to expose the guy for what he is and expose the programs doing for what he's trying to do to people.
Setting up educational organizations as front groups is a small but growing trend among Washington lobbyists. Their goal is to try and influence legislation and public opinion, and in this case, posing as consumer advocates while actually representing the corporate interests of food processors, alcoholic beverage and soda companies, and restaurant chains. There are a growing number of people keeping track of folks like Berman and Company. Go to abc7news.com. Click on the lobbyist story. We'll get you connected.
Almost like a chameleon, especially since right now the American consumer is so savvy about what's happening with lobbyists that they have kind of changed their tactics.
And really, to say we're the Center for Consumer Freedom, and we're not going to tell you where the money's coming from.
Exactly.
All right, Mark. Thank you.
Great story. Thank you, Mark.
We're at the United Gates, and this is going to take all night to get sorted out. People keep arriving at the airport from other flights, and they really have no place to go. Bob Wagner is trying to get to
Anchorage
for
Alaskan cruise.
What time's the boat leave?
Monday at 4 in the afternoon. I got to be there by.
So do you have anything? I mean, do you have a reservation or a...
Oh, it's, I mean, on a flight?
Yeah.
No, we were coming in about 15 minutes after the accident. We actually saw the smoke on the runway when we diverted down to the other airport. I forget where we went to, but San Jose or something, and then we got bussed up to here. And now we're in this line waiting to see whether we can get any flights to Anchorage before Monday at 4 o'clock.
With your new best friends?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me show you how big this line is. Bob's waiting in, all the way down as far as you can see. I was speaking with a couple of women who had flown in from Christchurch in New Zealand. Their bags actually went on the airplane without them. They are now stuck in San Francisco. No bags, no way to get a hotel room because they're being told the hotels are full. Now, I did talk to an airline employee who was handing out vouchers for discounts at a hotel. Whether or not there are actually rooms at that hotel, she wasn't able to tell me. Reporting live from Terminal 3, Mark Matthews, ABC 7 News. At times, the Coast Guard and National Guard helicopters fly in here at a frantic pace, unloading the sick and injured and homeless plucked from the flooded city.
Helicopter picked us up in the middle of the water.
Pearl Brown and her husband, Robert Johnson, and 8 others were swimming down the street in these life jackets, and Johnson says he saw over 100 dead.
We seen 5 people dead in the car, whole family, a man, a woman, and 3 children. Seen a woman and 3 children. Seen 2 men floating. Seen 3 young boys floating. It's all over. They got alligators back there, too.
A chief with the Parish Sheriff's Department says the deaths caused by Hurricane Katrina have yet to be counted.
I think we're going to have some severe casualties, a great number.
Graff's department is supervising boat rescues in Jefferson Parish, flat-bottom boats that launch from a freeway on-ramp. And these residents of New Orleans are helped to safety. There were 10,000 here, and it got very heated when the first buses arrived.
Please, back it up!
Emergency teams are caring for the injured. Food and water is now available here, and buses are lining up to take people either to the Astrodome in Houston or to San Antonio. It is a huge job. Emergency medical technician Mike Bernard says he has been here since the day before the hurricane and has not been home yet.
I have no word of if I still have a house or not. I don't know yet. So,
and you've been here ever since?
Been here ever since.